moment, get people quiet back there. Okay, welcome to the third annual Alumni Induction Ceremony. This is our third one. It's a great night. My name is Alan Hardesty. I'm chairman of the committee this year, and I am more than honored to be a part of the organization and actually to be here to, look around. It is an honor to be here, okay? For those of us who are POHI grads, and for those of you who are family members or friends of this year's inductees, we couldn't be any more proud of not only them, but their accomplishments. What endeavors they have gone through and what they have done is just outstanding. And I'm not sure if this mic, is it kind of weird? Is it okay? Okay, all right. I don't know if you guys know this, but I do. We've had 30,326 grads from POHI in the 117 years, okay? And I got that, no, I counted all of them. I counted all of them. But after tonight, we will have inducted our 25th inductee into the POHI Hall of Fame, 25th. And if you think about those numbers, to be honest with you, there's so many other people who deserve being in the POHI Hall of Fame. But I will tell you this, we have to have more. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we need more people to be nominated. And you are some of the people that we need to help nominate. You can go to our POHI Hall of Fame Facebook. There's a form on there. Fill it out and send it in, because there's a lot of people that need to be nominated. A little bit of a history here. The first graduating class was in 1902. 1902, yes. There were 3 people. I was only about 5 then, I really didn't know. But, and some of you may know these people. Lloyd Wagner, May Hackney, and Ethel Nutley. I don't know. Somebody's got to be a relative. Something serious. Anyway, that was in 1902. By the way, I have the 1908 and 1909 yearbook, so in that information, a lot of it came from them. Anyway, the POHI Hall of Fame committee is made up of, we have 21 members. It's different classes, representatives of different classes throughout the years, and we meet monthly, and we make our selections based on the nominees that are sent in. So we need your nominees, okay? And it's a simple form. Don't just call us up and say, hey, I want to nominate Joe. You need to send in a form, okay? You'll see some of the members. Most of us have little name tags. I'm not going to introduce everybody, but they're just hanging out here. But they have done an excellent job on the selections this year, as well as everything that's done here has, been some POHI or the committee members, so they've done an excellent job. Each year we have a class, a graduating class, donate some money to the Hall of Fame to help defray some of the expenses that we have tonight here, okay? And this year the class is 1961. Some of them are we appreciate that. It's nice for you to do that. And I think we already have somebody for next year, so if you want to come forward and do after that, we'll be good. Okay, we're going to get started here, but I want to introduce a couple of people. There's only 2 here that I know of that are previous POHI inductees, Hall of Fame inductees. I see Mike Boettcher is here. He was 2017. And then Mr. Chuck Bowman is here too. Class of 1954. Okay, we're going to get started. First of all, Gail Young is going to come up and say the Gail Northcutt Young is going to come up and say the invocation. And then after that, the national anthem and Pohai, We Love You, Ponca City We Love You song will be sung by the Pohai Chorale. By the way, the Pohai steppers are the greeters at the doors, and dinner will be served by the student council. Thank you.
When I say you're used to it.
I didn't call it either. I had no idea that you did what you did get Good evening. My name is Shelley Arrett. I'm the superintendent of Ponca City Public Schools. And first of all, I want you to give it up for our students tonight. Weren't they amazing? First of all, you were greeted by the Pohai Steppers under the direction of Kristen Smith. And I might add, they are the national champion Pohai Steppers. Our student servers were from our student council, Pohai Student Council, under the direction of Betsy Easley and Molly Carter. Weren't they amazing? You guys did an awesome job. And then the Pohai Chorale sang the Star Spangled Banner and Ponca City, We Love You. And that's what it's all about, our students. So they were awesome performers. I am not a graduate of Ponca City High School. However, I feel like I am a product of this school district. I actually began teaching here 26 years ago, began as a teacher, and I became an instructional coach, and then I began my administrative career as a site principal. And then I moved into central administration in both HR and curriculum, and this is my third year to serve as superintendent, so hashtag goals. I'm humbled and honored to serve. I have a deep loyalty to this district and this community, and this phrase rings true for me. Once a wildcat, always a wildcat. So it's a pleasure being here, and I am so proud of our school district and proud of our community. And while you were being served, I hope you enjoyed the slideshow of our facility updates that were due to a 2015 bond election, a $33 million bond election. Thanks to our community for passing that bond election. You saw some of our upgrades. Our concert hall, Ponca City Schools Concert Hall, the only concert hall in a public school in the state of Oklahoma. And I say it's a concert hall because it's a true instrument. There is no proscenium march. It is not a performing arts center. It's actually an instrument in and of itself. It's designed so that the performers are in the same room with the audience. You got to see our new press box and fencing at Solon Stadium, new football locker room, new turf on the baseball field. So we have had some major improvements, and that is thanks to this community. It's a commitment of how much our district and the students means to this community. So thank you, Ponca City, for voting in that bond election to enhance the academic and the extracurricular lives of our students.
Hi, my name is Morgan Didlake, and I'm going to be attending Oklahoma State University in the fall with a major in agricultural animal sciences. What does once a wildcat, always a wildcat mean to me is always being able to come back home and just knowing that I have a home even though I'm not really even at the school anymore. The Pohai Alumni Hall of Fame Scholarship will help me a lot with just helping me pay for some of my school, because I'm going to be going to school for a long time, and helping me to just reach all of my goals. My experience as a wildcat was probably better than most just because I formed a relationship with a lot of the faculty and staff, and I made a lot of friends, and I got super involved in a bunch of different clubs, and I'll just forever be grateful for that. I just want to say thank you for all the support and the opportunity to go through with my goals in college, and just thank you for everything. And I'm good.
Okay. Hi, my name is Katie Parr. I got the Ponca City High School Hall of Fame scholarship. I plan on attending Oklahoma State University and majoring in international business. I have always been part of the Wildcat family because my mom was a teacher, so once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat really has a lot of meaning to me. I plan on being connected to the school for as long as I live, and being a Wildcat was very important to me. I would like to thank the Hall of Fame Scholarship Committee in giving me this scholarship. It really will help me reach my goals at Oklahoma State University.
I'm Jeffrey Crossland. I'm going to OBU next year to study biology, and I hope to become a high school science teacher. I received the Jim and Mary Barnes Scholarship, and I wrote an essay over who I feel is a legend who has left a legacy that I would like to be like, and I chose Mr. Murray because he is a Christian man in science, and he has made a big impact on my life, and I want to do the same for students in the future. The Jim and Mary Barnes Scholarship is going to help me have a lot less stress next year for college, as it takes care of most of the financial need I had left after all the federal aid and scholarships I'd already received. I love my experience as a Ponca City Wildcat, and I had many teachers who influenced me and helped shape my career path I'm choosing. I am very thankful to the Ponca City School Hall of Fame Committee and Jim and Mary Barnes for this scholarship and choosing me to receive it.
Hello, my name is Bailey Lane James, and I'm the 2019 recipient of the Jim and Mary Barnes Hall of Fame Scholarship. This fall, I plan to attend Oklahoma State University and major in nutritional sciences. Upon graduation from OSU, I plan to attend graduate school to become a dental hygienist. I chose this career because I believe it does not matter how much or how little money someone has, their inner beauty shines bright through their smile, and I would love to make my patients feel confident with their smiles. Jim and Mary Barnes' legacy is one to admire. Jim had numerous accomplishments in his education, career, civics, and charitable organizations. I believe in my research he was found into 5 Hall of Fames along with many other amazing recognitions. Even after retirement, he continued to be active and involved in many other charitable organizations. That itself speaks volumes. One of the requirements of this scholarship was for me to write an essay describing how I've been a leading light or left a lasting impression on someone. Although it is difficult to write about yourself without boasting, I wanted to tell my story. Upon entering the lunchroom my freshman year, I noticed students sitting alone. The following days, the same students were still sitting alone during lunch. To me, lunch was a time where you could visit with your friends, reflect on your morning, and let your mind take a break from the classes. I was sad to see that there were students sitting alone with their thoughts and unable to take a break from the chaos of high school. I decided to start asking these students to join me and my peers during lunch. The once empty tables were now full of friends that never probably would have made friends without being encouraged. Throughout my 18 years, I have had more than a handful of individuals that have shown me how to be a leading light or left a lasting impression on me. I'll forever remember the impact that those individuals made on my life. I can only hope that during my journey at Poe High, I had left a leading light or left a lasting impression on someone, whether it was by encouraging them, including them, or simply just making them smile. I am sincerely honored and appreciative to have been this year's recipient. I would like to thank Jim and Mary Barnes for lifting a financial burden with this kind and generous gift. I am very thankful. Their generosity has inspired me, and I hope one day I'll be able to help students just as though Jim and Mary Barnes have helped me. Thank you.
Aren't they great recipients? All of these students are doing well at their universities, and I hope to see them inducted into this Hall of Fame one day. So now we're going to get on with our program, and I am honored and humbled to present the inductees for this year's Poe High Alumni Hall of Fame Banquet. And as Alan mentioned earlier, this is our 3rd year for the banquet and the Alumni Hall of Fame. Tonight we have 7 iconic individuals who will be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and Alan mentioned that 18 amazing candidates were previously inducted. And these pictures that you see across the front will be displayed in the Hall of Fame hallway. It's recently renamed. Right outside the Howe Auditorium in the original Howe part of the high school. The individuals who are selected tonight are going to be hallmarks of pride for our community and for our students. So I'm going to give you just a paraphrase of their bios, so follow along in your programs for all the details as I highlight their accomplishments. Our first inductee tonight is Fred Boettcher. Fred graduated from Ponca City High School in 1957 and received his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of St. Louis. He then served our country in the United States Air Force, stationed at Duluth, Minnesota. After his service, Fred began pursuing his law degree at both OU Law School and Georgetown University. Upon graduation, he returned to his beloved hometown and opened a law practice with David Garrison. He married Suzanne Boettcher, and they began living the American dream of raising their family. Times were not easy for the Boettchers at first, but Fred never shied away from hard work, and he spent many nights and weekends working in the fields with his father to make ends meet. Fred believed the only way for a community to grow and be productive was for people to be involved with every aspect of the community. And you can clearly see from Fred's bio that he was definitely active in our community. Mr. Boettcher was influential in developing Ponca City into the wonderful community it is today. He was determined to revive the historic downtown area, so he wholeheartedly involved himself in many projects, including the Main Street project, earning him the title of Main Street Hero. Fred was a pillar of strength for our community and a mentor to many. He was a humanitarian and a community activist who had an exceptional gift of vision for Ponca City. Mr. Boettcher fought a 20-year battle with cancer until June 9, 2019. He is greatly missed by our community. And sharing some personal thoughts about Mr. Boettcher tonight is someone who admired him greatly, Mr. Rich Cantillon.
I grew up attending St. Mary's Catholic Church, and I saw firsthand Fred's generosity and kindness at our church. He has always been an example of Christian charity towards others. Fred led by example. He always treated people the same, no matter your status in life. Fred did this with a smile and by being kind to every person he met. Fred set an example for me that has not only guided my life, but the life of my family. He will always be a very special person to me, and I'm grateful for what I have learned from observing Fred. Congratulations to Fred's family. He is deserving of this honor.
Accepting on behalf of Mr. Boettcher is his wife, Suzanne. Welcome, Suzanne, to the stage.
Well, I think I'm going to have to keep this upbeat. I certainly wish it were Mike up here, or Sophia singing, and not me, or Fred Boettcher, and I was sitting in that back row over there, and I could watch him parade up the steps and accept this award. However, I'm going to have to do the duty for him, and I hope I can make it. Our family has lived with WFD, what would Freddie do, for the last 4 months. And I'd like my family to stand up. I promise you I won't introduce them all, because some are married to cousins. Fred would, right now, he would thank me, which is good, and he would thank the jury and the judges and all the other deserving honorees. And then he would tell a very bad, tasteless joke, of which you've all heard before, but you would go ahead and laugh. So I will not submit you to that. And then he would thank the class of 57, which I feel like I'm a part of because I cooked for them for 60 years. Pohai was first on his list. He loved Pohai, and he loved it with honor and pride. He had so many gatherings of his class. I think every year you all got together. For many years, Fred acknowledged students that were deserving and needed help with scholarships. That was primary in his life. He came back to Ponca City so that he could make Ponca City better, and I think he really did. He told me before he died being appreciated for the contributions that he's made to Poe High was maybe the best honor that he could ever have. The award will always be in a special place. And right about now, he would look over and he'd see me, and I'd be doing that special thing that you do, and I'd say, time's up. You said enough. But I do hope you continue his journey and hear his laugh, because we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boettcher. We appreciate it. The second inductee for the evening is Tom Catlin. He's a graduate of the class of 1949. Tom was a very talented athlete and excelled academically while attending Poe High. He lettered in 4 sports: football, basketball, baseball, and track. And I asked the high school principal, how do you even do that? Letter in 4 sports, 2 were winter sports. But his favorite of all these sports happened to be football. While at Poe High, he was named to the All-State football team and went on to play football for the University of Oklahoma. He earned many awards and helped lead the Sooners to a national championship in 1950 under head coach Bud Wilkinson. Yay, Sooners! Mr. Catlin went on to play for the Cleveland Browns, and following his ROTC commitment with OU, he served his country in the Air Force for 2 years, then finished his pro football playing career with the Philadelphia Eagles. After playing in the NFL, Tom began pursuing his illustrious coaching career, and that began at West Point in 1957 and eventually led him to the Seattle Seahawks, where he stayed until his retirement in 1996. Tom won many prestigious coaching awards. To name a few, Tom was named the NFL's Coach of the Year by Sports Illustrated in 1992 as the first assistant coach to bestow this title. In 2009, Tom was posthumously inducted into the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. Tom passed away on June 7, 2008 at the age of 76. Each year, Mr. Catlin is commemorated with the presentation of the Tom Catlin Award, which is given to a Poe High football player exemplifying outstanding character. And I got to meet Mr. Catlin's wife, Betty, and she's a lovely person. It was very good to meet you. He's an inspiration to our football players still today, because that award is given every year at the Poe High football banquet. And here to speak some words about Mr. Catlin is his dear friend, Chuck Bowman.
Wow, am I excited. What a thrill it is for me to be able to speak in Tom's, to speak about Tom, because he was my childhood hero. And I want you to know that he has 2 of his high school classmates in this room. Dwayne Harper, stand up Dwayne, and Corky Sullivan. Those 2 guys were on the same high school team. Is there another? Thank you guys for coming. There's a couple of things that I want to share about Tom, and then I'm going to have Tom Jr. come up and accept this award. I was 5 years younger than Tom and my brother Dick Bowman, and they were 2 of the finest football players that Earl Sullins had to coach. In 1949, their senior year. They were both all-state guys and received a football scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. Earl Sullins told me one time that Tom Catlin may have been the best football player that he ever coached. And he coached a lot of good ones. And I was flattered to know that because Tom was not only a good friend, but he was really my hero. When Tom and Dick would, in the summertime, they would come back to Ponca City and play in the Church League softball league with First Baptist Church. And I got to play third base with that team. And I'm telling you, what a thrill it was for a junior high guy to be playing with two college heroes. And then I remember after every softball game, we would head toward the AAA root beer stand for Big Frosty Mug. And we'd drag Grand Street, like everybody else did. But it was just that kind of relationship that we had and that I had growing up in First Baptist Church with both my brother Dick and Tom Catlin. When Tom and Dick went to Oklahoma, they played on some great teams. Tom was the captain along with the Heisman Trophy winner Billy Vessels his senior year. And they were just awesome, just awesome. And it was my thrill to jump on the Santa Fe train here in Ponca City and go to Norman on a Saturday morning and spend the weekend with Dick and Tom. They were roommates all 4 years at Oklahoma. And they'd throw an army blanket on the floor and I slept there. And I thought I was in the Hilton. And I got to eat at Jeff's house with the football team. I got to meet all those guys. And it was just a little bit of heaven for a guy 14, 15 years old. During my playing years later, I was assigned to be an offensive and defensive center and linebacker like Tom was. And of course that gave me a special thrill because I wanted to be just like Tom. It never did happen, but I want to tell you one last thing that helped me quite a bit. My sophomore year, we were playing in North Carolina. It was the first game of the year. It was 100 degrees. It was the most difficult day to play football that I've ever been in. And during the pregame warm-up, the centers were all snapping punts back to the punters, and the referee came over and told Coach Wilkinson that number 52, that me, was the only one doing it right, and if anyone else in the game that snapped the ball that way, it'd be a 5-yard penalty. And Coach Wilkinson came over to me and says, "Chuck, where'd you learn to snap the ball that way?" I spent the summer with Tom Catlin. That summer was probably a week. But Tom did show me how to deep snap a football. He said, "You're a baseball player, you know what throwing a baseball's like in the pitcher." He says, "That same snap that you used on a curveball is the same snap that you've got to use getting the ball back to the punter." And you know, that's a 15-yard deal, and it's got to be quick, it's got to be right, hard. And Tom Catlin showed me how to do that. But it's just a great privilege to have Tom inducted tonight, and I want to invite Tom Jr. up here, if you will, come up and have a few remarks to make. This is Tom's senior son, Tom Jr. Appreciate you coming. You introduce your family.
Thank you. I would like to begin by thanking the Ponca City High School Alumni Hall of Fame, the selection committee, and in particular Chuck Bowman and Barbara Smith for submitting my dad's name for consideration. I want to congratulate all of tonight's inductees and their families. Finally, I want to acknowledge the family members who are sitting at our table tonight and those who couldn't attend. My wife Diane, who is at home holding down the fort, my dad's cousins, Barbara and Kay Smith, and Kay's daughter Lisa. My cousin Dan and his wife Joan. Dan is the youngest son of my uncle, Charles Catlin. My sister Kim, who is representing her family, her husband, Larry, and my parents' 4 grandchildren, Matt, Dan, Casey, and Emily. My mom, Betty, who was a coach's wife for 37 years. It is not an easy life, but she's an independent and tireless woman. She and my dad were married for 52 years, and my sister and I couldn't have asked for better parents. My dad passed away in 2008. He would have been 88 years old this month. I wish he was here to accept this honor himself. However, if he was, his speech would have been considerably shorter than the one I'm going to give you tonight. You see, my dad, for all of his accomplishments, did not like to talk about himself. In fact, the thing most people remember about Dad is that he didn't talk very much at all. When Dad passed away, friends and family sent us newspaper clippings from across the country: Oklahoma, Cleveland, Kansas City, Buffalo, and Seattle. All of them, to some degree, spoke of his stoicism, his steely gaze, and his ability to quiet a room just by walking in the door. Dad grew up in Ponca City, the son of Hugh and Elsie Catlin, and the younger brother of Charlie. He began playing football at Ponca City High School and achieved all-state status as a senior. His coach, Earl Sullins, called Dad his favorite player he'd ever coached, and Dad maintained a friendship with Coach Sullins for the rest of his life. Coach Sullins became an advocate for my dad, campaigning repeatedly to have him considered for enshrinement into the College Football Hall of Fame. Dad was not just a great athlete at Ponca City High, he received recognition for his academic work as well as sports. At the University of Oklahoma, he became an academic All-American. He was very good at analyzing things, figuring out what the best way was to solve any problem or any offense. When my sister and I were much younger, our family would take a road trip from California to Oklahoma every couple of summers to visit my mom's family in Norman and Dad's in Ponca City. We had a car with a really big trunk. You could have just thrown the suitcases in there, slammed it shut, and said, "Let's go." But I remember standing in the early morning dark, watching Dad put the bags in, shuffle them around, take them out, and put them and start all over again. It was like watching somebody putting together a puzzle. And why? Because there was a perfect way to load that trunk, and Dad was going to find it. You see, if you analyze things just so, you find efficiencies. You can prepare for contingencies, and you make room for the little things that may need to be added at the last minute. The process of loading the trunk of a car was not so different from the process of preparing a defensive game plan. My mom has a framed picture of a scoreboard from a game at Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego from 1984. The San Diego Chargers at that time were a well-oiled machine. Nobody could stop them. They moved up and down the field and scored seemingly at will. It was a Monday night game and the Chargers were playing at home. It was football's biggest stage. Air Coryell, Dan Fouts, Charlie Joyner, Kellen Winslow, all Hall of Famers. My mom's picture shows the final score of that game. Seattle 24, San Diego 0. It was like shutting out today's Kansas City Chiefs. It just wasn't done. But Dad figured them out, and his players shut them out. On occasions like that, Dad might receive some public recognition, a mention on the air, or maybe a close-up on the TV screen. But most of the time, he was in the background, doing his work in relative anonymity for Hank Stram, George Allen, and Chuck Knox. They were all outstanding coaches. 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame, and all of them were known for their suffocating defense. Dad was known as a cerebral coach. That just means he was a really smart guy. He didn't fall into coaching by accident. He had strong influences along the way. His dad, Hugh, played center. He had Coach Sullins at Ponca City High School, Bud Wilkinson at the University of Oklahoma. Dad played 4 seasons for Paul Brown in Cleveland. During his 3-year service commitment, he was asked to work on the staff of Coach Red Blake at West Point. These coaches won a total of 13 championships at the college and professional levels. Dad was well prepared for his chosen profession. Dad had a dry sense of humor, but he also had a sweet tooth. He could stop your heart with a look, but he would also get down on his hands and knees to help his grandchildren look for sand crabs and shells at the beach. Dad loved being by the water. He and my mom vacationed in Hawaii as often as they could. He took fishing trips to Alaska in the off-season throughout his coaching career. He always dreamed of a house on a lake, but he settled for 10 weeks a year at a timeshare in Ocean Shores, Washington. He loved it there. There he was able to get away from the stresses of coaching, walking on the beach with my mom, and spending time with their 4 grandchildren. When Dad retired in 1996, the Seahawks threw him a big party. There was a giant chocolate cake decorated like a Snickers bar, because apparently that was his weakness and everybody knew it. There were also bowls of mini Snickers scattered around the room, and when he wasn't sneaking them himself, he was stuffing them in the pockets of his 2 grandsons. At that party, the guests were asked to write in one word what best described Dad. The winner, by far, was integrity. Integrity, humility, and leadership pretty well sum up my dad. Dad made a career of making good teams better and very good players great. When Kenny Easley of the Seahawks was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2017, he honored my dad by inviting our family to be among his guests at the ceremony. 5 of Dad's former players are in the Hall of Fame. There are no assistant coaches in the Hall, but if there was a category for them, I believe Dad would have a very strong case. Tom Catlin was proud to be from Ponca City, and I am proud to be standing here for him tonight. Writing this speech has given me a chance to reflect back on the kind of man my dad was and what he meant to the people who knew him. On behalf of my entire family, we thank you for this honor.
Opportunity to introduce our ushers tonight. Our current high school principal, Mr. Thad Dilbeck. Stand up, Mr. Dilbeck. And one of our assistant principals, Sean Tagliatella, a Boettcher graduate. We like to call him Tag. Our third inductee this evening is Norma Galbraith Davenport, a graduate of the Boettcher class of 1961. Norma married J.C. Davenport from the class of 1960. At a young age, and after a year of study at an NOC, Norma worked to support the family while her husband completed his education. J.C.'s job took him to the Houston area where Norma attended Texas State University. After the birth of their children, Norma resumed her education at the University of Houston, and upon graduation was admitted to the Bates School of Law at the University of Houston at the age of 36. I was visiting with Norma at the reception, and she said she had her kids at her feet in the classroom with her. She graduated and passed the state bar exam and became a member of the State Bar of Texas. Ms. Davenport has held several notable job titles, which include serving as the Assistant DA of Houston. Then 7 years later, she was highly recruited by the Union Pacific Railroad, a Fortune 500 national railroad, where she became the first lawyer in the railroad's Southern District and helped develop an in-house litigation section. She successfully defended Union Pacific all over Texas, and she was eventually promoted to Solicitor General, the first and only female to ever hold that position in any railroad in the United States. She was in charge of legal issues for a large expanse of territory until her retirement in 2002. Ms. Davenport is a civic leader who served on many boards throughout her career and still serves on the advisory committee for the Board of District and County Attorneys Foundation. Ponca City remains a top priority for Norma. She loves connecting with her dear friends and her classmates. And one of her classmates is going to share some personal thoughts about Norma tonight. Please welcome Jim Howard.
I'm really pleased to be here tonight, not just because Norma's being inducted, but because Lloyd Gelmers was one of my favorite teachers, and because Tom Catlin was my hero also, Chuck. I got nowhere close to his performance, but I didn't get anywhere near yours either. So. Many of you tonight have probably heard a murmur. Before we began to eat, there was some kind of question kind of moving through the crowd. People were asking one another, who's that very handsome woman that looks so distinguished and accomplished that's accompanying J.C. Davenport tonight? The answer I'm here to provide for you is that it's Norma Galbraith Davenport. In the 1950s, many of you are old enough to remember that Ponca City was a great place to be a kid. You could roam outside in your neighborhood from dawn to dark, and nobody ever worried about where you were or what you were doing. On North 3rd Street, there was a tribe of kids that played in that neighborhood. And the oldest member of that tribe was a guy named Artie Galbraith. He was a few years older than I was and a few years older than his sister Norma. He was kind of our hero. He was a football player and he was a person of some accomplishment. But Norma and I were just part of the tribe. That was a group of people who would walk to school every day about half a mile from North 3rd over to Roosevelt. That trip took us through War Memorial Park, although none of us knew that name for the park at that time. We referred to it as the Tree Park, I guess as opposed to the other park that had playground equipment. During quieter moments, I took piano lessons, and I took them from Norma's mother. It was very handy. She was right across the street. And Norma told me during a conversation we had recently that when she went off to college at Tonkawa, her mother helped keep an eye on her kids, and later, when her mother, much to everyone's surprise, 15 years after Norma's birth, gave birth to a set of twins. And Norma became kind of an adjunct mother for these kids, and she enjoyed it so much because she got to boss them around. And both of those brothers are here tonight. If you want to meet them and make a judgment for yourself on whether they turned out okay, you can blame Norma if you don't give them high marks. One other tie that Norma and I had is that our fathers in retirement were part of a group that played golf at Wentz Golf Course a couple times a week. But over time, as you've heard, they moved to, she and JC moved on to Texas and left the rest of us here behind. Think about what your life was like and what it would have been like if you had left whatever you started out to do educationally at about 20 or 21, and then returned to college at age 36. That's when Norma got into the legal education program and was an outstanding law student, so outstanding that she was hired by the Harris County District Attorney's Office. Started at the lowest level in that office, but quickly moved up to be the chief of their felony prosecutions, the toughest cases that the office took. She became known, I don't know if she had a nickname, but she was like a silent killer, because the Bar Association in Houston was pretty much a group of good old boys. And they knew how the system worked, and they accommodated one another. And she showed up in the district attorney's office, and she started beating them in court. They decided they couldn't treat her with kid gloves anymore and had to start treating her like one of their own. She was savvy and thorough and tough, and consistently beat this group of people that thought of themselves as the pretty damn good trial lawyers. And they may have been, but she was better. After about a decade in the DA's office, she was sought out by the Union Pacific Corporation. They wanted to find somebody who could open up an in-house law operation for them, and they chose her. This would allow them, they thought, to quit using the old outhouse lawyers that they had been hiring when they were sued and needed some legal advice. That phrase, outhouse lawyers, is a term of art in Texas legal circles. That's also a joke, and I appreciate everybody being tuned in to that. She began, if you don't follow the legal processes in Texas, you may not be aware that people all over the country, if they want to sue a corporation, they can seek out certain jurisdictions in Texas that have a tendency to return results that result in large awards to plaintiffs. And corporations can take a beating in those areas. And the people who are bringing the suit can pick where they want to file the suit. Well, railroads are very vulnerable to that because their tracks run everywhere, and you don't have to file it where whatever offense or tort apparently occurred. But Norma had to go and defend the company in all of these plaintiff-friendly jurisdictions. Her first big case was in Matagorda County, and the local bar decided to get her there and watch her take her first beating. And she won that case, the first defendant verdict awarded in that jurisdiction in anybody's memory. And all of these good old boys ducked their heads and left the courtroom without saying goodbye to Norma, who they had come to watch be humiliated. In the recent decades, she has become a spokesperson for women's rights, women's legal success and experience. She has become an expert on railroad issues, not just in Texas and the Southwest, but throughout the country, and has spoken at national conferences on legal issues and women's position in the legal profession. Tonight, we're fortunate that we have managed to lure her away from her beloved Texas Hill Country home to be with us as she enters the Ponca City High School Alumni Hall of Fame. I'd like for you to welcome Norma Galbraith Davenport.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, John Young, for bringing me here John was my sponsor, and I don't know what he told the committee, but he's a silver-tongued devil, huh? Anyway, I'm excited to be back in my hometown, Ponca City, the best hometown in the United States. I've always felt good and safe coming back here. From Roosevelt to Garfield to junior high, Ho High. This has always been the place where my family got an education and loved it. I'm so grateful Mom and Dad chose Ponca City to start their careers as educators. Dad was a principal at Garfield and then at Liberty. He taught summer school in the high school. Mom taught in the high school. Horace. In grade school, our music teacher quit because we were too rowdy. So who filled that spot for the rest of the year? So I was always the one getting in trouble in that class. But since Poha runs in my family, I'd like to introduce some of my family who are with me tonight. And if you'd stand up when I introduce you, that'd be great. Unfortunately, my older brother, Artie, you've heard referred to, Charlie, our family now, passed away 3 years ago. But he was the leader of the pack. He graduated in 1959 and was an architect. The next one was me, and I became the lawyer. The next one was Rob, to graduate in 1966. He became a lawyer and stayed in Ponca City to practice law. And he and his wife Jenny right now are spending a month in Italy. Not bad for a Ponca City kid. Those twins you heard about, they both graduated in 1976. Doug is an architect and David is a lawyer. Would you two stand up so they can see you, please? These are the twins. I was the babysitter. My husband, J.C., graduated from Poha in 1960. He is a CPA, and he's the one who's graduated. Our daughter, Susan, if you'll stand up, did not go to school here. She graduated in Texas from UT, came back to Houston, and she is a lawyer for Exxon. Linda Galbraith is Artie's widow, his wife of many, many years, and with her is my niece, their daughter, Amy. Our oldest son, Rick, lives in Tokyo, Japan, and has for many, many years with his family. So he's not here. Our other son, David, lives in Puerto Rico with his family, so they're not here. But I do have my very first Ponca City friend here, Alvy Miles. Their family lived across the alley from us. We spent many, many hours playing board games on their living room floor. And my brother and I spent many years climbing trees. And are we excited to be here? I am excited, honored, and surprised. You betcha. And you can tell from that how long I've been in Texas. I'm surprised, I guess, because I never dreamed of anything like this. And my mother would probably be very surprised because I think she thought I would never graduate from high school. I skipped my senior year because we got married when I was a junior and he was a senior. That's 59 and a half years ago. A few of the things that both the speakers said about me were true. some of them were not fine. I wasn't 36 when I started my law, started studying the law. I was 36 when I graduated law school and started my career. And one thing in your little brochure, in the first paragraph, it says that the Davenports were educators here. Well, my brothers wanted to point out that those were our parents, the Galbraiths. Okay? Well, I never knew what a big deal it was to be a female lawyer. When my brother Rob graduated with a marketing degree, he came to me and said, I've got this marketing degree and I do not want to be a salesman. What can I do? And my immediate response was, if I were a man, I'd be a lawyer. And so he did. He became a lawyer. And I kept thinking about that. Dadgummit, I wasn't a man. And then it was, dadgummit, why do you have to be a man to have a certain career? So at age 29, I went back to school. I had to go 6 years straight, get my undergraduate and my law degree, while my husband claims he was taking care of all the kids, the 2 cats, the dog, and the remodeled house. But he was coaching all of them at Little League Baseball, so he was busy with it. Sometimes it was Susan sitting on the floor under my chair at law school, but she was very good. I couldn't get her to take notes for me. One of the things I'd like for everybody to focus on, now that women can be lawyers and judges and doctors and Indian chiefs, is to encourage the young people in your family. They don't have to go the same path everybody else did. I certainly did not. But I ended up where I wanted to be. And I didn't know it was such a big deal to be a female lawyer until I started doing well. And then it was, because the men were horrified. They hadn't been losing until then, until we had enough females trained to try cases the way I wanted to. So I was an adjunct professor of trial advocacy at University of Houston for a while, doing that at night school, like I didn't have enough things to do. But I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed sitting second chair with young lawyers as they learned how to sit down and take advantage of their education. When I started, I only was trying cases in Texas for Union Pacific, because that's where my license was. But it was under federal rules, and I'd never done that before, so that was a challenge. Our outhouse lawyers, that was really a term that they all understood and knew that was very warmly said. We were in-house and outhouse. We had lawyers in each of those states to try cases for us. And we would all go over the cases together before they ever got that far. I guess I've been there 6 or 7 years when I was promoted to general solicitor. The first female in any railroad to hold that position. I never have figured out why. And the only female so far to have ever held that position, and that kind of concerns me. I thought, well, maybe I didn't do a very good job. But it's still such a male-oriented business that we're getting there. And I had the legal responsibility for Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Laws are different in every state, especially Louisiana. This business about a timetable. You go to high school, you go to college, you start your career, and then you start your family. It doesn't always work that way for everyone. But we all have a purpose in this life, and we all have a goal in this life, and we all have a dream. So as your young people in your families approach that age, maybe our grandkids now, encourage them with their dreams and their goals. And all it takes is a lot of hard work and time, and people who are on your side, who are at your back, who help you through it all. And may God bless and sustain all of you through your endeavors. And that's all I have to say.
Talk about having goals and female accomplishments. Congratulations, Ms. Davenport. Our fourth inductee for the evening is A. Lloyd Gelmers. He was a graduate of the class of 1947. Upon graduation from Poe High, Mr. Gelmers graduated from Oklahoma A&M in 1951. He returned to Ponca City to teach mathematics at Poe High, farmed the family's land near Newkirk, and raised his family. Mr. Gelmers taught many levels of math at Ponca City High School for 42 years. During his tenure as a math teacher, he won numerous awards, served in math leadership roles, wrote math curriculum, and took many students to state mathematics competitions where they were quite successful. Because of his superior instruction, his students were successful in their university-level math courses as well. Mr. Gelmers also served as the YMCA High Y organization at Poe High and took many groups of YMCA youth to participate in activities at the Oklahoma State Capitol each year. Not only was he a wonderful teacher and a youth activist, but Mr. Gelmers coached boys volleyball for 19 years at Ponca City High School. Coach Gelmer currently holds the record for the most state championships of any sport and any coach in the history of Ponca City High School. Remarkably, Mr. Gelmers led the Poe High boys volleyball team to 11 state championships. He won many coaching awards as well and was named District Coach of the Year by the National High School Athletic Coaches Association, which covered a 7-state area. Mr. Gelmers retired in 1994, but continued to substitute for the math department and ran the clock at wrestling and football games for many years. A. Lloyd passed away at the age of 89 on February 1st, 2018, after a difficult battle with Parkinson's disease. Obviously, Coach Gelmers made a positive impact on many students, and here to tell you what he meant to him is a member of one of Coach Gelmers' volleyball teams, Troy Buller. He's a current teacher at Poe High.
Teaching for 42 years. As a former math teacher, I can't imagine the endurance that took. Lloyd taught mostly what we call AP classes, advanced placement, trigonometry, calculus. I wasn't in those classes. I knew he was coach. And we've talked amongst, there's 3 or 2 other former players in here. There may be more, but I know there's 2. And it was kind of funny. I had him at the end of his career, and he was the most gentle, kind man. He had an infectious laugh. When he would laugh, everybody laughed with him. I understand he was a little more intense in his younger years. I know Coach McKay was on his first state championship team. I didn't get that honor either. I was on one of his teams that won a runner-up in state. And the next year we came back, and inside the locker room were all the runner-up trophies that he'd won. The message was sent. He didn't ever disparage what we'd accomplished or what we'd done, but he had an intensity about winning, even though it didn't come out in how he acted. I later became a coach, and I always tried to model myself after how he coached. I failed miserably, but I tried. Later on, while I was coaching, I went to a gold medal squared coaching clinic. It had some U.S. Olympic coaches. The BYU coaches were there. If you don't know, BYU's like the Alabama or Oklahoma of volleyball. Mount St. Mary's coach was there, and the K-State coach was there. And they got to talking about these techniques that were the latest and greatest that we needed to coach. Well, guess what? Lloyd was coaching those back in 1985. His coaching tree, extended to Coach McKay, who was the inaugural coach for our women's program. It goes to the collegiate level. It includes me. It includes the current high school program, the current high school girls coach. He has a huge coaching tree. He influenced, as I calculated it at one point, with 42 years of teaching, that means he influenced 6,000 students over those years. The fact that I become a math teacher and I become a volleyball coach was largely attributed to him. And my story is just one of those. There's 5,999 others out there. So, accepting his nomination this year is Brittany Lawrence, his granddaughter.
My grandfather, Lloyd Gelmers, would have been humbled and honored by this recognition. On behalf of his family, I would like to thank the committee for selecting my grandfather to be one of this year's inductees into the Ponca City High School Hall of Fame. Most members of the Hall of Fame leave Ponca City to make their mark on the world. My grandfather returned not only to Ponca City, but to Ponca City High School, where he taught mathematics. And he made his mark on the world through the influence he had on his students. I would like to share some stories and some comments from his past students. I think of Mr. Gelmers often as I try to emulate his zest for life in general and math in particular. Sometimes while teaching calculus to my high school students, something will come up that will make me laugh, and I will think back to Mr. Gelmers' classes and his wit and quick laugh. I am thankful that so many were blessed to know and be influenced and inspired by him. I will always owe Mr. Gelmers. I haven't seen him for over 40 years, but I remember it like yesterday. During a time of my life that wasn't going well, he gave me extra credit so I could pass his math class and graduate high school on time, enabling me to go off to computer school that summer. I'm not sure how my life would have turned out without his help. His family can be proud of the lives he touched, including mine. I was never a student of Mr. Gelmers. I wasn't smart enough. But my classmates who did loved and adored him as a teacher, a friend, and a mentor. I also never played volleyball for him. I wasn't tall enough. But without exception, all the guys I knew who played for him had the utmost respect and almost a reverence for him as a coach. The number of people Mr. Gelmers influenced during his lifetime is a calculation even he would not be able to find a solution for. We would all do well to follow his legacy with earnest. Mr. Gelmers was a great teacher and friend to all students. As one of the few earliest black students at Ponca City High School, his extra attention and care given to me made me feel welcomed and accepted as a student. I still have my calculus book from his class, as well as the old Fortran punch cards. I don't know how else I can say I respected the man and what he taught me. There were so many days I dreaded his class as I was ill-prepared, and always wondering what I was missing. He was teaching university-level mathematics in high school. I still use those skills and that textbook today. I still look back on Mr. Gelmers as one of the greatest influences of that part of my life. I had him for several classes and played volleyball for him. I probably learned more about respect and leadership than math from him. I never had him for a class, but know him fairly well from the High Y. He was a class act where political differences counted for nothing, and mentoring and integrity stood for everything. As a tribute to this teacher, my co-high class of 1964 had many college graduates in math and engineering because of their background and understanding in mathematics. Mr. Gelmers is the answer to my security question for favorite teacher. I took 4 math classes from him during my senior year alone. I can't help but wonder how many people in this room had a Lloyd as a teacher, a coach, or a colleague, and may have their own stories to share. These are just a few stories of how my grandfather influenced the lives of countless students. As their math teacher, he was instrumental in guiding them to their current careers. As their coach, he exemplified the best in character and perseverance. He is remembered by generations of students as a great teacher, a great coach, and a great man. Thank you.
I might add that Brittany Lawrence, A. Lloyd's granddaughter, is a teacher for us at East Middle School, and she teaches mathematics. And that's not all. Education runs in the family. A. Lloyd's daughter, Julie Lawrence, Brittany's mother, teaches Spanish at Poe High for us currently. So educators abound. Okay, that means you all have to stay with us for 42 years. Okay. Don't tell me that, Julie. Our next inductee is Clayton Johnson from the class of 1979. In high school, Clayton Johnson was very active in the Navy, JROTC, and worked at the Ponca City Airport. He was so driven to become a pilot, he earned his private pilot single-engine airplane certification between his junior and senior year in high school. And later he became certified in multi-engine craft. Upon graduation from Poe High, Clayton attended NOC and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts, Criminal Justice, and a Master's in Criminal Justice from UCO. Mr. Johnson joined the Ponca City Police Department as a reserve officer and worked his way up to an appointment of police chief of the Ponca City Police Department in 2002. He served in this role until he retired in 2011. He is a graduate of the FBI National Academy and completed the program for senior executives in state and local government at Harvard University. On August 22nd, 2011, Mr. Johnson was appointed by the President to serve as the United States Marshal for the Northern District of Oklahoma. On September 11th, 2017, Marshal Johnson was notified he was being retained by President Donald Trump. Marshal Johnson is responsible for the U.S. Marshal Service operations in the 11 counties of northeastern Oklahoma. In addition to serving on many advisory councils, Marshal Johnson won several awards in law enforcement and was inducted into the Oklahoma Law Enforcement Hall of Fame in 2012. Here to share some words about his dear friend, we have Mr. Rich Cantillion.
When I started my chamber career in Ponca City, Clayton was one of the first people to come and greet me. Clayton is a very loyal and great friend to have. Several of the things I admire most about Clayton is his passion, commitment, and his humor. Clayton lives life to the fullest and loves a fun adventure. He has traveled the world sailing and truly enjoys bringing family and friends along with him. Congratulations, Clayton. You're so deserving of this honor, and I won't share the other stories that I could.
Rick, thank you very much for sitting down. I truly appreciate the time to speak in honor this evening. I spent quite a bit of time thinking about what I wanted to say today. I was thinking, should I try to be funny? Should I try to be insightful? Should I just say as little as possible and sit back down? And I came up with nothing, to tell you the truth. I didn't want to go down a real long list of the people that I need to thank.
because there's been so many mentors in my career. But I do need to recognize, real briefly, just a few people. My wife, Nancy, she has always been very supportive of me. She's very proud of me, and to be brutally honest, if the rest of you think I'm a bum, but she's still proud of me, I'm okay with it. My dad, Nick, and my mom, Judy, my mom's not able to be here tonight, but they've also been so very supportive of me and proud of me and of both my brothers. So I'm very, very fortunate. The reason why I was able to get my appointment by President Obama is because of Fred Boettcher. Mr. Boettcher used his influence, and he opened the door for me to become a United States Marshal. And to the Boettcher family, I'll always be grateful, and I've never forgotten that. Thank you. When there's a change of parties in the White House, it's very common for all the U.S. attorneys and for all the U.S. Marshals to ask to be resigned. I was on that track to be replaced as well, but this community rallied up, and you folks are the reason why President Trump retained me. I'd like to say it's because of my skill and my wit and my good looks, but none of that's true. It's because of you folks, and my wife and I and my family will always be grateful. One of the things, to be brutally honest, that I debated whether or not I should share is high school was a rough time for me. I was not a scholar by any means. I never had the courage to find out where my ranking was in my class, but I'm going to guess that it's on the wrong side of 50% line. In fact, I'm going to guess that I'm lucky if I was in the bottom quarter of my class. I was not an athlete. I couldn't spell math, so, you know, things weren't looking really well there. High school was tough for me. I made some very dear friends, but it was rough. The superintendent was very kind in discussing my college career. It took me 10 years to get an associate's degree at NOC. Johnson boys don't give up. You got to give me that. I always wanted to be a police officer. And when I entered law enforcement, I had two goals. I wanted to be the police chief in my hometown, and I wanted to be the United States Marshal. And to be quite honest, I can't believe that those dreams have come true. And again, it's because of the folks in this room, in this community. And I'm truly fortunate, and I'm truly grateful. And I'm glad that the committee did not look at my high school records, or else I wouldn't be here this evening. But anyway, I'm truly honored, and I'm humbled by this award. Thank you very much.
Marshal Johnson, we're proud of you no matter what your ranking was, and I promise we won't look it up. Our next inductee is Truman Smith from the class of 1942. Upon graduation, Truman joined the U.S. Air Force. During his assignment as a B-17 bomber pilot, Truman flew 35 successful missions over Germany, France, and Poland, all before the age of 21. For his distinguished service, Mr. Smith received 13 more decorations. When his overseas tour ended in 1945, Truman was assigned to Langley Field, Virginia. After active duty, he continued his passion by flying PBY flying boats in the Great Amazon Valley and the Andes of South America as a commercial pilot for the Reconstruction Finance Corps of the U.S. government. After his return to the States, Truman entered into another passion. It's quite a turn. He was accepted into the famous Pasadena Playhouse, California State School of Teacher Arts. He graduated in 1948 to become a director at KTTV, Los Angeles Times, CBS Hollywood. Using his new talent, he was called back to the United States Air Force to help develop TV in the Korean War and command over 7,000 television support squadron for Europe, North America, and the Near East. In 1958, Truman and his wife Margot moved back to Ponca City, and he joined his father and his brother, and they ran Smitty's clothing store. Even after his return to Ponca City, Truman stayed true to his passion for filmmaking and writing. He won silver medals at the Cannes Film Festival and worked closely with many Oklahomans to develop, write, and produce many films and documentaries, and a feature-length movie entitled Red, White, and Black, which was filmed in and around the Ponca City area. In 1996, Truman had his first book published. It was titled The Wrong Stuff: The Adventures and Misadventures of an 8th Air Force Aviator. Truman passed away on February 2nd, 2011 at the age of 87. Obviously, Truman had many passions and talents, but his favorite passion was to tell a great story and make other people smile. Longtime family friend Jim Howard is here to share some personal thoughts about Mr. Smith.
Did I mention that Norma, Galbraith, and I used to live in Boettcher? Our next honoree, as you just heard, is Truman Smith. He was born during the Roaring '20s when Ponca City was overflowing with oil money, risk takers, and a generous spirit. The generous spirit continues today. Truman graduated in '42. By that time, we were involved in a world war, fighting for democracy around the globe, and he eagerly accepted his duty and joined the Air Force. You've heard some of his military experiences. I met Truman when I was in high school here. Each year for school, in addition to buying some new jeans, when school started in September in those days, my folks would take me down to Smitty's, and if I was lucky, I got a new sport coat to wear to church that coming year. Truman had just returned from his 6 or 10 careers that he had had elsewhere and joined his father and brother in Smitty's when they used to be on West Grand. Going into Smitty's even before Truman showed up was kind of magical for me. There was a certain smell, a scent to new fabric, and there was cashmere, there was lamb's wool, and there was flannel and worsted wool, and all these sweaters, lamb's wool. It was just the colors for school, for clothes for fall. They were enchanting to me. It always felt good to go into Smitty's. And then you add this crazy storyteller, and I couldn't stay away. Truman would be telling stories, exotic stories about being a World War II bomber pilot, making all those trips as the Berlin airlift unfolded as Russia tried to keep the rest of the Allies from being able to supply Berlin. And then to listen to him talk about being a bush pilot along the Amazon basin. And I remember how exciting it was here in Ponca City. Television wasn't that, television was fairly new. And there was a syndicated show on, and some of his films that he took in the Amazon were featured on this syndicated show. And just knowing that here's a guy from Ponca City, and we know him, he's downtown, we go see him, and listen to these stories, and here he is on TV. magical. And then he had stories about Hollywood. And you get to thinking, all these stories can't be true. This guy hasn't done all these things, has he? When I went off to college, I was very proud of Ponca City, and I was fairly parochial about Ponca City. And I developed a kind of a mantra that I would repeat, and I became known for that. And one day when I was in Smitty's, Truman had heard about it, and he asked me to tell him what it was. And I did, and then for several years, every time I saw him, he wanted to hear it. And I know you would like to hear it also. I'm from Ponca City, Oklahoma, the Athens of the Southwest, the center of culture and enlightenment, the capital of beauty and elegance, and home of the pioneer Mormon statue. And in recent years, I've added the standing bear statue. But Truman liked that. So that endeared me to Truman. As an OU student, I had a student job, and I made $1.25 an hour for working 20 hours a week or something. And Truman started working on a couple of films, and he was trying to raise some money. And he told me about all these efforts trying to talk people into donating to support the films. So I sent him a check for $25. This is crazy because I was getting money from my folks to pay for my college. This is $25 that came out of my student earnings, but I wasn't paying my full way to school anyway. But Truman loved it. And from then on, he would always introduce me as one of his investors. That $25 went to support a movie called Durball, which he entered in the Cannes Film Festival and won a silver medal. So I've always felt like I was involved in the production of a Cannes Film Festival winner, and I'll be happy to sign autographs. So we're done here this evening. In a previous life, I was in the publishing business out west, and we published fine art books on Western art, Indian arts and crafts, Western history, and a lot of joint ventures with university presses of the Mountain West. And I came in contact one day with a fellow named Bert Kennedy. It was amazing how many people would come to Flagstaff and want to talk about a book. I met the guy that wrote Grandma's Feather Bed for John Denver. And I met Walter Brennan. But this guy, Bert Kennedy, was, according to him, a Hollywood producer and director and writer. And we get to talking, and he's there to try to convince me that a friend of his should have his book published. Well, after we finished lunch one day, we're just talking, and it turns out he was at the Pasadena Playhouse with a guy named Truman Smith back in the late 40s. And then we had a lot more to talk about. Bert Kennedy directed or wrote Support Your Local Gunfighter, Support Your Local Sheriff, did several movies with John Wayne, Randolph Scott, and he and Truman were lifelong friends. Talking with his daughter this evening, Bert used to come here and visit. But I suspect most of us didn't realize we had a celebrity like that here in town. But you started running into people who knew some of Truman's life, and you realized that all these stories he told were true. He had actually done these things. He was always working, even after he settled back here in Ponca, with cultural activities, the arts. He and Bob Westmoreland were involved in programs together. Walt Harris, Gallagher Rule. And because of my relationship with publishing, Truman would always try to bring me in with these people, and he suspected that I could magically cause them to get a book published or become famous somehow. I was never able to produce that kind of magic for his friends, but I met a lot of interesting people. We had a lot of interesting evenings drinking and listening to Truman tell stories, and I will always cherish that time. Those of you who knew Truman will recognize how my wife came to know him. Before we moved back to Ponca, he and Charlie Haller used to call me at least once a month each to try to talk me into moving back to Ponca earlier than we planned to. And Truman would call, and the way he would begin the conversation was, "Truman Smith here." And that's what my wife would hear when she answered the phone. And if I were not in town, he'd talk to her for half an hour and tell her 2 or 3 of the stories that dazzled all of us. And that's how she became acquainted with him. Wherever Truman traveled, he took with him his pride in Ponca City. Whether it was in Europe, in a military environment, there's awards in Cannes, in the French Riviera, whether it was local television in Los Angeles, or talking to fellow pilots in the Amazon as they filmed and flew missions for the U.S. government. I'd like to close with a story that illustrates, to some extent, the pride that all of us share in Ponca City, and Truman was especially proud of. He loved to tell this story. A friend of his was entertaining some guests at the 21 Club in New York. The 21 Club is a restaurant bar that is frequented by the wealthy and the celebrated people of New York. He had run up a pretty hefty tab that evening. And when it came time to settle up the bill, he pulled out his checkbook and was going to write a check. And this was back before credit cards were ubiquitous, so it wasn't unusual for people to write a check. But the waiter said to him, "Sir, we don't accept checks." And so here's this Poncan. He's 1,800 miles from home, and he's getting ready to pay for this big bill at the restaurant, and he can't write a check. So he opens up his jacket to put his checkbook back in his coat, and the waiter sees the Smitty's label on the inside of his jacket. And he said, "Are you from Ponca City?" And Truman's friend said, "Yes, I am." And he wrote his check and paid his bill, and everybody left. Representing the Smith family will be his daughter. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce, on behalf of our fellow Wildcat, Truman Smith, who carried our banner to Germany, the Amazon, Hollywood, the French Riviera, and back to Ponca City. Pilot, cinematographer, writer, director, producer, teacher, haberdasher, patriot, Truman Smith, and accepting on his behalf is his daughter, Simone Straw.
Speech like everybody else. You did very well telling a story, thank you. And I would just like to thank the committee for selecting my dad for the Boettcher Hall of Fame. He would be truly honored. My dad loved Ponca City and the people in our community. And we are excited to be receiving this induction in honor of my dad. He's been gone for 8 years and it's still hard for me, so thank you, everybody.
And I want to add that Truman's granddaughter, Heather Harris, teaches PE for us at Liberty and is our swim coach. So give it up for Heather. Our final inductee of the evening is Laura Ann Starks. Laura graduated with the class of 1976 with a 4.0 GPA. Growing up in Ponca City meant life in a town where women in STEM was not a far-off aspiration, but a given part of the working culture. Laura earned a Bachelor of Science degree, magna cum laude, in chemical engineering and from Tulane University, and an MBA in finance at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. During college, Laura worked one summer in chemical research in Ponca City that resulted in co-authorship of a U.S. patent for lithium alumina. Post-Tulane and after earning her MBA, Laura worked for several well-known energy companies in marketing, finance, and engineering positions. As L.A. Starks, Laura is also an accomplished author of the Lynn Dayton thriller series. All of her books have received 5-star reviews, and many in this series have ranked in single digits on Oklahoma bestseller lists and have won numerous awards. As part of her writing career, Laura started and is the CEO of a small publisher named after an Oklahoma geological formation, Nemaw Ridge Publishing Group, LLC. Laura has resided in Dallas, Texas for many years, and in a parallel occupation informed by her vast experience, she is an energy investor. Work as an investor required her to start and become CEO of a second small company, Starks Energy Economics, LLC. Laura serves on numerous boards, has participated in 16 half marathons, and loves to travel. She is married to another Ponca City High School graduate, Joe Dannenmeyer, class of 1975. Sharing some words about Laura is her classmate, Kevin Kreger.
Well, I'm going to keep this brief. As they mentioned, Laura's a fellow alum, the class of 1976. We were the bicentennial seniors, and we had the red, white, and blue t-shirts to prove it. I will throw in a quick plug. You've heard about her being an author of her books. She has signed copies at Brace Books, so be sure and check those out. And without further ado, Laura Starks.
Kevin, thanks so much, and thanks particularly to Beverly Smith, my sponsor, and to the committee. I'm extremely honored to be here. For their support, I have lots of people to thank, but I particularly want to recognize my parents, Charles and Virginia Starks. Where's the end? And my husband, Joe Dannenmeyer, who you've also heard is a POHI graduate, class of 75. I want to recognize POHI and the city of Ponca City itself. Here I gained the inspiration to try anything, learn anything. Much has been written about the limitlessness of the Great Plains. And yes, it was a blue sky that I saw and felt here every day. It was here that I first realized I could pursue these two different tracks that interested me so much, engineering and fiction writing. Ultimately, I've learned that in fact the two careers are not oppositional but complementary. In both, I'm constantly judging, working with, and writing about risk. As I thought about what I would say tonight, so many people came to mind. First, I represent my fellow graduates, the fine class of 1976, and all that we have done, which is considerable. I represent my entire family, including my brother and sister, who are also Pohai graduates. I also represent Tulane University and the University of Chicago Business School, and it was Pohai and Ponca City that prepared me for both. By the way, if there are any college advisors, the University of Chicago, where my son is a student, and where my husband got a full scholarship, is trying to recruit more students from outside the big cities, from places like Ponca City. Just an FYI, just so you know. Here early on, I developed a global or an international sense. First from reading at the Ponca City Library, then Voorhees, then Braces, which as you know is now under the ownership of Tara Smith. Here I also developed my global sense by meeting people who had literally come from around the world, as scientists do. Developing the global sense is extraordinarily handy. Energy is an international business. Thrillers are written with an international perspective. Energy is the world, as we've just been reminded again, well beyond the borders of Kay County, Oklahoma, and the United States. Even my high school French, the French that I took, helped when I went to New Orleans with that city's Cajun and Creole culture, let alone once I actually went to Paris. Here I could try out many roles, from getting up to work the morning shift at what was King Louis Spud Nuts, a shift that started at 3 a.m., to long weekend hours, serving hamburgers at McDonald's, to, yes, working for Conoco, for the lab, and even earning a patent, as you heard. Yet I can still find it hard to explain Ponca City to outsiders. Frankly, it took me a long time to recognize how unusual it is, how unusual Oklahoma is, its history, including the richness of the First Nations or tribes who were forcibly settled here. There were the Scots-Irish who ran the Cherokee Run, or who came from places like Kentucky, as my grandmother in central Oklahoma did. She survived the dust storms and then the hard times of the 1930s. I also find it, let's call it a useful challenge, to explain how technical and scientific Ponca City was and is. The chemistry we learned in Miss Kelly's high school class was reflected and enlarged just down the street at the labs and at the refinery. Growing up here, the mindset of, you can't do that because you're a girl, was simply incomprehensible, because that's never how it was in Ponca City, with the examples all around me. It was second nature to understand that both boys and girls grew up to become scientists and engineers and energy investors. With this positive outlook, I thank Ponca City and Pohai, and most of all, my mother and father. The can-do, will-do attitude of engineers is reflected in my second book, Strike Price, and I'm happy to promote it yet again. All my books are braces, so please go see them. But from Pohai and from Ponca City, I learned I could try anything. There's talk today of lanes, but here I never had to just stay in my lane. What Pohai and Ponca City gave me, what my parents, friends, and teachers provided me, wasn't a single lane or even a highway, but instead a compass and wings. Thank you.
Without doubt, this has been another wonderful Ponca Ponca City High School Hall of Fame Banquet. And aren't the stories just mesmerizing of our 2019 inductees? Amazing, accomplished people. The photos, as I mentioned, will join the 18 others in the Poe High Hall of Fame hallway, and they will serve as an inspiration to our current students to strive to achieve excellence and greatness. And we have a new mantra here throughout the district, and it's called the Wildcat Way. And the Wildcat Way is actually an acrostic of character traits exhibited by all Wildcats. These character traits will get you success in life, will help you achieve greatness. And we want all of our students to focus on these traits. It gives us a common language and something to focus on. The characteristics are W, work ethic, I, improve, L, leadership, D, discipline, C, compete, A, attitude, T, teamwork. You would be so proud of our students and their knowledge of these traits. Clearly, our inductees have pioneered the way for the Wildcat Way by implementing these traits into all aspects of their life. That these traits have led our inductees to great accomplishments. I have no doubt that many future Ponca City High School graduates will go on to achieve greatness. Thank you for coming this evening. Have a wonderful evening. Inductees, if you will come to the front, we would like to get your photo. I want everyone to thank Larry Williams. He is a retired teacher, and he's a photographer for all of our activities, and he's going to be taking pictures. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our